Welcome back to the David Cerebral Palsy and Fitness podcast, everybody. It has been quite a minute, I think about a month or so since we last had our episode. And so today I have the distinguished honor and pleasure of having a former professor of mine from UCF, former professor at Grand Valley State University, Dr. Hinojosa. Welcome.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you inviting me on the show.
Yeah, I'm so excited because I became very intrigued when we had our conversation a few months ago. We were just talking about the Ray Hinojosa Family Foundation, and I guess you started that foundation just recently, right?
Yeah, it's been going now for about 10 months or so. It's growing every day, and it's definitely been a journey to kind of get it up and running and get to this point.
I know that based off what I was research I was doing, it's a foundation that has a lot of significance behind it, a lot of meaning behind it. I had seen that you have a brother, Ryan, that's dedicated to this foundation, right?
That's
Tell me
correct.
about Ryan.
So my brother Ryan was one of 80,000 Americans that have lost their lives as a result of opioid overdose. And he passed away in 2019. The shock of losing somebody that you love is difficult to describe. And it was such a significant loss that we wanted to do something to honor his memory and honor the lost potential. When he was in high school, he was a football player, and he was interested in going to college. Then along the way, sort of got lost in substance use, and that ultimately led to the overdose a few years later. And so he never really got to live to his full potential. And so we started the Hinojosa Family Foundation with an eye toward being able to reach out and help other young people who have an aspiration to go to college or go to vocational school, but might not necessarily have the resources to be able to do that. And so, I know that there are a lot of philanthropic organizations out there. And so we wanted to do something that both honored my brother and sort of made his loss turn into something meaningful.
And then how does this how does the criteria work within the foundation for these students? Is it just open for seniors or can juniors and seniors apply to it?
So currently we're working in the West Michigan area. And that's where we relocated after moving from Florida. And so we decided to work with Ryan's former school. And essentially the criteria are that the student has to be interested in going on for an education, and could be a community college, it could be a university, or it could be a vocational program. They simply have to express an interest and state that they have a need. And if we have the resources, then we're able to provide them support.
So is it more like of financial assistance kind of where the student applies and if they qualify based off need, they can I guess be awarded the funding for the school?
Right. So the idea also grew out of my own experiences. Grew up relatively poor and didn't have the money to go to school. And so I was fortunate enough that my father had a credit card that had a big enough limit on it. And so he was able to help me pay for my first couple of semesters of school until I could get a job and pay for it myself. But it was in that period that it would have been nice to have money for gas or money for books or money to pay for a couple of extra credits. And so that's what we wanted to do with the Hinojosa Family Foundation. And so the award amounts aren't large compared to other organizations, but the idea behind them is really to help support the things that can make college that much better. And so if students use it to pay for gas to get to school, that's fine. If they use it for books, that's great. If they want to set a little money aside and use it for lunch with friends to socialize while they're at school, that's okay as well. It's completely up to them on how to use that money. But the idea behind it is that we want to let people know that college is difficult and if we can provide that financial support to ease that burden, then we're happy to do that.
It is, and education is more important than ever, especially in today's day and age. I mean, everything's evolving so quickly. And one of the things we were just talking about off camera is we're losing sight of what education is.
Yes.
What is education now? You have tablets, you have all this technology, and we're starting to lose focus of, teacher to student instruction, attention, all these things. What do you think is a way for us to help fix that or remedy that situation?
Well, I guess I'm sort of biased in this and that I'll say greater support for teachers, always helpful us. I think just recognizing the role that teachers play, not just in the lives of the students, but really in supporting American democracy. The ability to provide education to the citizenry so that they can make informed decisions about policies or informed decisions about just everyday experiences, I think is the real beauty of what teachers do. Providing individuals with training and critical thinking skills, providing individuals with historical information so that they understand where we stand in the grand scheme of things is really an understated value. And so I think if there's something that we could do to bolster education, it would be to continue to support the teachers and continue to recognize that much of the work that they do is selfless, and it's selflessness directed at supporting the students, but also supporting the society in which we live.
Funny story, you guys. So Dr. Hinojosa and I was actually a student of his 10 years ago at UCF. We were young kids back in the day.
Long time
Now,
ago.
long time ago, we had baby faces. Now we're old men.
Well, I'll let you have the baby face, Dave. I've always been old and craggy, so
Hey, it's amazing how technology allows us to communicate and keep in touch and see what we do. That's a positive thing about it.
absolutely. And, I think that the issue of technology is even more important today, particularly when it comes to AI and how AI is going to be integrated into the educational setting. And so I really don't have an opinion on that. I think that any use of a tool that helps you to better orient your research or better orient your studying is a valuable tool. And so I sort of remain ambivalent about its use, both in my classrooms and in the work that I see the students doing.
I don't know if we ever knew this, but Dr. Rechtenwald and I, a couple years ago, I did an event over at UCF that they had for student accessibility services. I was a part of a panel. And so she was a part of that panel, and so we were able to catch up and, together, and, we had a fun time at that event. We got to answer questions about students with disability. They had me as a guest, alum, to talk about my experiences within the program and at UCF in general, and so that was a lot of fun, getting to do that, and, just my time at UCF was incredible. I mean, just the fact that I went through it, and it was I guarantee it was a very difficult road up there, to make it through, and especially because I went through a lot in my life, living with a disability, and I'm gonna share this with you, but you and I have something in common. My biological mom died from an overdose 18 years ago,
I'm truly sorry to hear that.
and so for me to graduate, the date I graduated back in 2016, the week before Mother's Day, 25th, well, I was about to turn 25. That day meant more to me than anything. It had chills down my spine, and every year, I get really emotional because that means a lot to me, and I pulled through it and I made it.
And you did. I think you are a testament to drive and ability and a desire to see something through and improve standing. And, it was a real treat to have you as a student. You were certainly far more engaged than, what I would typically see both in the classroom and in terms of scholarship. And so, that's always a real treat to have students who are actively engaged and happy to have the opportunity to learn and experience the educational journey like you did.
Yeah, so it was very interesting and seeing the experience, it was quite amazing, and to be able to pull through it, that's what made it even more awesome, you know? When I heard the statistics about how many people graduate with a sociology degree and just in general at UCF, I was floored. I was like, "That's not even half of the population."
Yes, it's true. College is difficult. We sort of have this cultural narrative that who goes to college is just out there partying and having a good time. And, I think nothing could be further from the truth. And so all of these movies and media narratives that we have that depict college as one grand party really do a disservice to all of the hard work that the students put in just trying to manage a day-to-day schedule. It's probably one of the most difficult experiences that a young person can go through, and we certainly don't give enough credit to everybody
Yes.
who does that.
Definitely, definitely, and I give credit to all the professors out there putting in the work, all the teachers, they don't get enough credit. They do not get enough credit for what they do.
I'll second that, sir.
Yes, yes. So, what are some of your future aspirations for the foundation? Where do you want to take this?
I'd eventually like to develop a series of training programs where we have the opportunity to expose students to some of the history that's been made here in Michigan. Everything from the auto industry to the furniture industry to the political and legal landscapes, varying social movements. Obviously, the labor movement is a big one. And so we've spent a lot of time sort of brainstorming on developing a series of workshops and series of field trips that I would like to see enacted. And part of this comes out of an understanding that we focus on bringing talent from the edges of the state to the inside of the state. And so we recruit a lot of people from Detroit or from Muskegon or other places like that. And then we bring them to the center of the state, to the University of Michigan or Michigan State. But what that means is that a lot of the students don't actually get a chance to see some of these industrial centers and may not necessarily understand some of the aspects of things like inequalities, racial justice, some of the racial justice movements that have happened, certainly in places like Detroit, that have shaped American history. That sort of gets lost when the populations are moving from those areas to other places in the state. And those are just some of the ideas that, we're talking about. It's a series of workshops. I'd also like to be able to develop a stronger financial support system for scholarships. And so just lean a lot heavier into what we're doing with that initial financial support for students headed to school.
Would you like to partner up with, like, I guess the school districts, any like local universities in your area to partner up with their scholarship? I mean, to kind of help with the backing and support, and just be able to bring more, like you said, more resources and more opportunities to other students in the area.
Absolutely. I think with any new organization, we'll always be subject to making sure that we're doing what we set out to do, and being able to prove that takes some time. And so, I do think eventually we'll get to the spot where we can draw on partnerships with the universities and other community organizations. But during this initial period, we simply have to demonstrate that we've got the capacity to drive for the sorts of change that we're looking for, which is greater support. And we're doing a fair job of it right now, or at least I'd like to think we are. And so we'll see where a couple of years brings us. But yeah, that would be the ultimate goal, is to start making much stronger connections in the community.
You know what? You gave me a great question to ask. If Ryan was still alive today, what would he think about all this that you're doing?
I think he would probably be embarrassed that we did it partly in his honor. He was a very humble person for his experiences. I think that he'd probably be pleased to see that we're attempting to do something that comes out of something so traumatic. And so, if what we're able to do can help some other folks, then I'm sure he would smile at that.
Definitely. I mean, when it comes to family, when you do stuff for family like this, it truly is from the heart. And it seems like you all are doing this for the heart and for wanting to better your community. And I commend that tremendously.
Well, thank you, David. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
We're
definitely.
certainly
I
trying.
mean, it's one of those things where we all work together, and when we work together, we can make things happen.
Absolutely. I think it's true that we're not in this alone. It's one of the truisms of life that you're not going to get through it by yourself. You certainly need the support of your friends and your family and the community. And so I think anything that people can do to contribute to improving other people's lives makes our world a better place. And so the fact that we're able to do something in some small way is a very satisfying thing.
What are several quotes or saying you live by in your life? Do you have anything that you kind of think about, a quote or a saying that you tell yourself every day, or you tell your group of students or anybody out there that needs, that encouragement?
Oh gosh, that's an interesting question. For many years, I have lived by a three-word credo, which is I am responsible. And I try to apply that to almost everything I do in my life. If I, for instance, get into an argument with my kids, I recognize I am responsible for that, and I have to think about where I went wrong and how I could do it better. If I go into the classroom and I have a student who is getting a failing grade, I am responsible for that. Ultimately they're in my class, and if they're not doing well, that's my responsibility. And so I think approaching life from that standpoint really helps me to keep motivated, keeps me focused on moving forward. Now, I will say it does come with some anxiety because sometimes I'm not responsible for what other people say and do. But the sentiment is that I have my perceptions and my thoughts, and those are the things that I can control. And so, to the extent that I'm able, then I do so.
Yeah, it's always important for us to hold accountability to ourselves and be responsible for ourselves for anything that we say, anything that we do. You have to try really hard to fail your class. I found it a piece of cake and I enjoyed it.
I appreciate that, but hopefully this doesn't get out because I don't need to be flooded with everybody getting coming to my class thinking they're going to get an easy A. Because I would
Right.
like to add that while it's hard to fail, I don't think it's easy. I tend to focus on a lot of
Of course.
reading, and
I mean,
so
it's only hard if you make it hard, you know?
yes, I think that's the truth.
Yeah, I mean, if you make it hard that's on you, that's on yourself, if you don't study hard enough or if you don't apply yourself, then the class will be hard, but honestly, I always applied myself to your class. Every class I went to, I wanna make sure at least I pass it once because, you have this rule where you fail a class, I think, in college, and you have to repeat it, and it's, like, double the amount of the tuition now after you don't pass it.
Yes,
Mhm,
absolutely. You know, I,
mhm.
I think that's generally just a good rule in life, right? If you try hard enough, and if you try hard and you still fail, then at least you can take pride in the fact that you tried hard. And there are lessons to be learned with that.
So we will stand corrected. So I will hold myself accountable and I will say Dr. Hinojosa's class is easy only if you apply yourself in his class.
That's correct.
So let's put it that way. Yeah, but just in general, it's always an honor to speak with you and always a privilege. And if you ever need anybody to come to speak to your classes virtually and just share my experiences and just in general, I'd be happy to.
Absolutely. And I would love to have you. I will take you up on that offer, David. So be careful what you promise here.
I'm open for it, I'm
I
always
think
open.
the students could truly benefit from your wealth of experience. And you stand as a really fine example of hard work and determination. And I think everybody could benefit from that.
Definitely, definitely. Where can everybody find more information about the foundation and I guess get a hold of whoever's in charge of the program itself to inquire about assisting?
Sure. So We have a website. It's Hinojosa Family Foundation, all one word. And my last name is spelled Hinojosa. It's a Spanish origin. My family goes way back to the 1500s in Spain. And so
Wow.
proud family tradition, but it's Hinojosa Family Foundation .com. And there's information up there about the sort of philanthropic work that we do. And as well, memorial to my brother because he was such a key part of all of our lives.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I mean, I couldn't be more proud of you myself. You know, you've done a lot for our community and our city, especially in Orlando. You did a lot for many years, and thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, David. It's always a pleasure to speak with you. And, I've been following you for quite some time now, as you know. And so I have to apologize for the difficulty that we had in
Not at
getting
all.
together and, being able to finally find time to sit down and just have a good, heartfelt chat.
Hey, we all live lives, right? It's a part of life. And the beautiful thing is we'll eventually get together, and that's what happened today. We finally got connected.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Dr. Anahosa, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me on, David. I'm thrilled to have had the chance to talk about the Hinojosa Family Foundation and my brother's legacy, and I hope your audience perhaps takes the time to go take a look at it.
Definitely. I had a lot of fun. Thanks again.
All right, take care, dude.
You too.